Okay, so yeah, thanks so much for joining me today. I'm here to talk a little bit about the school that I am a part of, Ronald McDonald House Charities Toronto School, located in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how the school works, like how it came to be, where we are now, and some of the impact that it's had over the years. So happy to share that with you. And I was very much inspired by well, there's Midori, who I know as well. Hello. Very much inspired by holistic education. That's really been the guiding principle from the school since the very beginning. So it was something that in the school is now going to be celebrating in October its 20th anniversary. So 20 years ago is when it began, and you'll see through the presentation how it's evolved over the years. So this is a picture of the main classroom now and a recent photo from a bunch of us on a pajama day there. So how did the school start? It started as an education program in 2003. Basically, when I was at OISE and at University of Toronto, I cold called Ronald McDonald House and said, oh, could I come here and do an educational placement? And they said, oh, we don't have anyone working in education at the school at Ronald McDonald House, but we'd be very interested in that because a lot of the families who are staying here, of course, everyone staying at Ronald McDonald House is there because a child in their family is receiving treatment for a serious illness. So what they were finding was that a lot of the families were identifying that school was a major issue for them. They weren't able to figure out how to was their tutoring available? How could they have their children continue in school while they were undergoing treatment? Or what about the siblings who were coming to stay so that they could be together as a family? For that family-centered care, how could the siblings access schooling? So that was really where I came in. In 2003, I did a needs assessment study for the site, as well as ran 5 weeks of educational programming at Ronald McDonald House. And we took the results of that programming, the satisfaction surveys from the programming, as well as the results of the needs assessment study to the board of directors and received funding for a 1-year pilot education program. So that started in 2003. And then after 1 year, it was very successful. All the families in the house with school-age children were participating in the program. So we went through the process of becoming recognized as a private school by the Ministry of Education of Ontario. So that, again, next month, we'll be celebrating our 20th anniversary as a school. So we are the only Ronald McDonald House in Canada to have a school, and one of the only ones worldwide. So really, it is something quite distinctive about Ronald McDonald House in Toronto. And I have made connections with others in the United States that do have schools, but a lot of them do have teachers at their sites. There's not as many that have their own school within it, but there are a few throughout the world. One in Palo Alto in California. There's also in San Diego. So there's a few in the States that also have schools. So as I mentioned, we do serve the siblings and the patients. And the whole idea from the beginning was that we wanted to be able to meet the academic, the social, and the emotional needs of the children, recognizing that we couldn't really do one without the other. And I think, those of us who are in holistic education, sometimes there's been some resistance to it, but I think I didn't have as much resistance because the families were going through such difficult times as it was, that talking to anyone about meeting the social emotional needs, there wasn't really a question that needed to be done in the setting that we were in. So why is the school needed? So in Toronto, if our school was not available, the siblings would not have access to education while staying in Toronto, and patients would only have access to a maximum of 1 hour a day of individual tutoring. So really, without the school, it would be quite challenging. The only other option for the siblings would be to enroll in a local school, but then the challenge that we have there is the exposure to so many illnesses and things that would be concerning for them, as well as the ambiance of our school, where there's other families who are going through the same thing, really creates a safe space for them to talk about the emotions and everything that the families are going through. So our guiding principle for the school is to compassionately provide a unique student-centered learning environment to facilitate academic, emotional, and social success. So as I mentioned, that's really been the idea from the very beginning. And you can see throughout the presentation, I put some quotes from students that they have shared it has meant to them to attend the school. So here you can see a grade 3 student saying, even in my most difficult times, RMHC Toronto School made things fun for me. So that idea that, even in that really the most difficult times, and we certainly have worked with children in the most difficult times. For example, in the days after a sibling may have died, they've been attending the school, which I would say would be, definitely one of the most difficult things a child could go through. And that has been there for them to support them and the whole family as they're going through those difficult times. So what we found is, just so you have a sense of where we're at now. So of course, when I first started, I was teaching in a converted, first in a tutoring in a closet, then in a converted playroom, then in a converted bedroom. So the first 7 years of school were not so glamorous. They used to be in a classroom that was a classroom Monday to Friday, and then on the weekend, it was a bedroom. So every Monday, every Friday, I would clean up the school, bring down the Murphy bed out of the wall, make the bed for the person sleeping there on the weekend. And then every Monday when I came in, I would clean up the bed, clean the room. We didn't have housekeeping staff or anything like that. So that was all where it came from. But those first 7 years, I wouldn't do it any other way. It was definitely an incredible time and really a wonderful experience for me right out of teachers college to have that experience. But we have grown since then. So we now are in a bigger space than we used to be. So we started in a 28 bedroom Ronald McDonald house, and we're now in an 81 bedroom Ronald McDonald house. So we now are in a much larger facility, which meant that we have more staff on site. So currently we have a principal, so myself, we have 2 full-time teachers, we have an early childhood educator, and a tutor. So we do have quite 5 staff that now work within the school. And then we also have volunteers and placement students as well with us. So it is a big team to support the different students that we serve, which is of course all ages. So in our school, we actually have 3 different options for participation. We have a preschool option for 2.5 to 4-year-olds. We have an elementary school option for kindergarten to grade 8. And then we also have a high school option. So there's quite a range that we're serving, which explains why we have a lot of different educators helping out. So our average number of students per month is about 21 students, and we have an average length of stay of 6 weeks. Generally, we serve more our siblings than patients. And I will say that although our average length of stay is 6 weeks, we will see students every year that we serve the whole year. So there are definitely some long-term stays in there and some short-term stays. And that's kind of an overview of where we're at right now with the school. Last year, actually, we saw our highest numbers ever, though, with a number higher than this of more like 24 students attending a month. And in the year, we served 98 students in the school year, which was quite a jump. Before that, we were averaging about 75 students a year. So as I mentioned, we have 3 participation options in the school, and I will mention that these 2 actually grew out of COVID. So before COVID-19 happened, we mainly offered the full day learning, which was for kindergarten to grade 8 students. It was from 9 to 3. We teach all subjects, although we now teach French on demand because we find serving people from all over the world. We've found that the second languages of most people are all different. So although French is the second language of Canada, we do teach core French on demand, as opposed to we don't have like a French immersion program at our school. All of our staff do all of the planning and the assessments for the full day learning. So before COVID, that was our option, and we did offer a bit of tutoring for secondary students before COVID. But during COVID, we really expanded to offer 2 other programs. So we created this program, EASL. So it actually stands for Engaging Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And the reason we brought that in was because we found that there were a lot of students for whom a full day was not manageable, or that like it wasn't able to be something that either medically was manageable, socially was manageable, academically was manageable. So we wanted to provide another option to provide students that maybe that full day it was too big of a step right away. So that's how EASL was born. So EASL is now available for kindergarten to grade 12 students. They're 30 to 120-minute sessions, depending on how many students we have. And they're held one-on-one or in small groups. So what we do, our tutor works with these children, either one-on-one or in a small group, and it can be various things. So that one is really catered to what the child needs. So if a parent phones us and they say, you know what, my child's like really struggling with socialization, then we can do some coaching there to say like, okay, how can we get them to feel like talking to people? You know, a lot of the children we serve, they've just done a stint of like 45 days in isolation, right? They've had a procedure, they've had to be isolated for 45 days. Trying to reintegrate into a social setting, really challenging. You might even experience that from your COVID. Remember when we were like isolated and then we had to come out? And I found like even myself, I'm a social person. It was like, oh, this is like a lot, right? This is a lot of energy. So sometimes it's that. Other times it's academic, especially for our secondary students. The high school students, it's very much most of their learning now can be accessed online. But if any of you have tried to do an asynchronous course, you know, with no instruction, and then like imagine you're trying to do that course and you have a brain tumor that's impacting your ability to process information. It's just very overwhelming. So our tutor is there to provide that support, help them understand what is the lessons being taught, scaffold the learning, help them with those planning, all those executive functioning skills. That's another way we use EASL. Also, we use EASL to help people who are struggling emotionally. Maybe, you know, they're not feeling confident in themselves. They're very overwhelmed to try to come to a classroom with children, with all different children. So we can help them as a stepping stone, do some of these one-on-one or small group sessions, and then they can integrate into the full day learning at a pace that works for them. So that was EASL. And then we also introduced our school readiness program for 2.5 to 4-year-olds, realizing that they were not getting a lot of opportunities for learning. So we do a session, a live session with them in person. Our early childhood educator leads it. And then we do weekly activities, play it bags, where we send home different activities that the families can do together, either at the hospital or in their room. So those are the options that we currently offer. And what we are is just like, you know, the philosophy, like we meet the students and we meet the families where they're at. These programs have been developed from family feedback for us seeing what the needs are. That's something for the 20-year history of the school that's been super important to us, has been able to look at what the current needs are and develop programming that to those needs. So that means we can change, right? We can pivot, we can do different things. And the number one thing when I'm hiring a staff member at my site is that they have to be flexible. This, you know, we have to change all the time. Students are joining our class. Every week we're having new students join. People are going and going. So the flexibility, the ability to, you know, make a child feel comfortable within a short time is really important and pivotal for their success. So those are what we offer now. So you can see the impact. These are our key performance indicators, which of course we have to present to our board of directors and everything like that. But we do measure the success of Ronald McDonald House in terms of its learning environment, the academic, the emotional, and the social impact. And those are our results from last year. So what you can see is that the very high results. And I think that mainly is because we are able to respond directly to the needs. And we are prioritizing these items, which in this forum are very important. It's all of those things work together: academic, emotional, social, spiritual, all of those pieces work together. And we look at them equally, not one without the other. So these are some comments that we've had from the school team. You know, we are amazing experience with the school. This was an online, who did online and in person. Staff were caring and considerate and in tune with the challenge we faced being away from home. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the key aspects of the school that make it fun place to be. So in terms of our learning environment, you can see from the key features, we do, we like to be on top of the current research. So, what are the current theories that are being used in classrooms and how do those integrate with our principles of holistic education? So our universal design for learning and making sure that everyone feels welcome and included. Culturally responsive teaching, differentiated instruction. All of these are principles that you use within the classroom in order to make everyone feel welcome and included. We also offer a variety of things. You can see a lot here, but one thing I'll highlight that's been very exciting for the school since the very beginning is our monthly school fairs and our field trips. So we do go out every month on a field trip. In COVID, of course, we had to pivot. Sometimes we had to do virtual, and then we were able to work with sites where we would be the only group at the site. So it was that we get out and explore different environments. So we do go on those field trips. A lot of people say to me, well, why would you go once a month on a field trip? Well, we go once a month because our average length of stay is 6 weeks in the school. So we want everyone to have a very comprehensive experience in the school, which includes a field trip and a school fair. A school fair is when we invite the parents and caregivers to come into the school every month to see what their children have been working on. Those take the shape what the children want. So if the children would like to present a drama show, if they would like to do a musical presentation, whatever their interests are that year or that month, we work that into preparing a school fair. School fairs are extremely beneficial to the development and the emotional well-being, particularly of siblings. A lot of the times when a patient is ill, a lot of attention is put on the patient for good reason, because a lot of family, the attention needs to be there for that moment. A lot of times siblings feel left out. They feel that they also will not ask for things they might need because they do see that their families are very stressed, right? They can see it. Really encourage parents and caregivers to come to the school fair, particularly if they have a patient who's in the hospital full time and just the sibling is attending. Really try to emphasize to them the importance of trying to make it to that school fair if they're able to, and have seen the major results when we're able to fulfill that. If a parent cannot come, we do assign staff members or different people to be the person kind of cheerleader for that student. So they do have someone who's asking them specific questions or really connecting with them. So yes, you can see children commenting on the school, providing a sense of normalcy that I desperately needed during my sister's hospital stay. So speaking a bit to the impact there. So here's some other projects just to show how we really like to connect with the children's interests in their learning, as well as what's impacting them at that time. So at this time, when we made this, we had several students in the school who had babies in the hospital. This particular child, he was actually in the hospital, but he had a baby who was born when he was at the house. And so basically created a baby blanket for his child. So for his sibling. And a lot of them, that time, a lot of them created these baby blankets. Here we had a child doing a family recipe. So bringing in her family traditions, missing some of that from at home, not having an opportunity to make some of the foods that they enjoyed. So that was something there. And here you can see a child, when we did a fashion design unit, doing inclusive unit, where they designed different outfits for wheelchair users. We had a lot of wheelchair users in the house at the time. So in terms of academically, we do, one of the biggest thing we're looking at is the reading, the math, and the writing. You'll see through our other projects, science, social studies, all those types of subjects, we're doing a lot of cross-cultural integration. We're doing a lot of interest-based learning, but we also recognize that the reading, the writing, the math, those are the things that are cumulative. Those are the things that if we don't really teach intensively when we have the students, that's where they start to feel the most overwhelmed when they go back to the hometown school. So because we're really focused on making sure that they integrate smoothly at home, we do spend a lot of time on that in our math and language program, doing that intense reading, writing, and with the structured literacy, it's all coming out more recently, and that that program, that's something that we've been doing for a long time because we've recognized that that's where a lot of our children are behind because they've had such the hospital stays or the inconsistent schooling. Some of the other things you can see there that help us, the interest-based learning, the small ratios, all those kinds of things. And here you can see here, yeah, my son's grades are up and he is motivated to do his work. So it speaks a little bit to the academic dependent. Also for the social, I mean, the social, you can see one of the biggest ones, I'll highlight the last one there, is giving students a role other than patient. So when you're, and if ever you've been a patient at a hospital, if you've had an illness, a lot of time that you feel like that is your identity. You are patient, you are this, right? So one of the biggest things about the school is it's giving them another role than that. They are patient, but they are student. So it also allows them then to connect more strongly with people at home, their friends. A lot of their friends don't have an understanding maybe of what it's like to be going through an illness, but they do understand what it's like to have to do, you know, math homework or to go on a field trip. Those things help to foster those connections as they have things that they can talk about. And it allows children to think about, you know, they can move forward in areas of their life. Yes, they are receiving treatment and things like that, but they can also be still moving forward in other areas of their life. And that's a very important impact for the children here. And then the quote here at the bottom really emphasizes the second point there, which is really showing students that they'll be accepted for who they are now. So you can see here, my son was scared people wouldn't accept him because he looks so different now. The friends he made at school put those fears to rest. So again, kind of a stepping stone of like, I look different. I don't feel the same as I felt before. That concern, this type of stepping stone helps them feel more confident about who they are now and the type of person that they are and what will happen when they go home. So last one, I'll just talk about for the impact is the emotional impact, which really, again, it keeps families close. The school allows families to stay together. It helps children feel connected. And the biggest thing that a person ever told me was this quote. It still stuck with me. This one was from early in my career, but when a grade 11 student said to me, continuing my education while I was sick, told me I had a future. So the impact of that, of knowing that, you know, by doing the education, she was looking to the future, thinking that, you know, this was saying like, I'm going to get better. I'm going to move on and do something else. So it was very important for that hope and the value of hope, the importance of hope when you're going through a challenging time. So yeah, I'll go share a couple other quotes here, which is just this one that talks about here and just the way we approach illness and approach it in the classroom. But this child shared, I don't like it when some people feel sorry for me or treat me differently because I have cancer. When I'm at RMHC Toronto, I don't get special treatment or sad stares. My teachers and the people I meet understand that I just want to be treated like any other 13-year-old. So again, there's that importance to the holistic development of that being treated, you know, not differently, but, you know, acknowledging that you're going through an illness, but coming when the students come to class, they're a student coming to class, you know, and you're looking at them in that way and able to meet their eyes and talk to them about whatever it is that they want to talk about that day. And then, yeah, for the parents, it really provides an opportunity for them to have that space when their children are at school. It's a safe space. It's a safe time for them to do something, you know, although we do encourage parents to talk to their children about their illness, to experience all that and to have those open conversations. There's some times when it's so overwhelming, you're dealing with this, you just need some time for yourself. You need some time to have that time with your spouse or to talk to a doctor, to talk to a family member when your child is in a safe space and learning and doing something for themselves that allows you to feel more comfortable doing those things. Or, you know, doing self-care for yourself, going downstairs. We have a gym in Ronald McDonald House, using the gym, you know, we have all sorts of programming in the house for like massage therapy, those kinds of things for the parents. So this parent saying, RMHC Toronto School allowed my family to stay together. I don't know what we would have done without it. So we'll just talk about this one, and then I know we're getting up to kind of the half-hour mark. So then I'll turn it over to see if people have questions or just to kind of chat further about it. But this was a voice here from a student that I think kind of sums up an experience of people at Ronald McDonald House School, but saying, when I think back on the school and the big impact it had on my life, I realized it was not just about schoolwork and field trips. It was about the experiences we held dear to our hearts with the house and the families. It was about the relationships we developed. It was about using our sad moments and finding joy somewhere. It was about friendships. There was a grade 7 student who said that. So yeah, I think given the time, we'll take it there. We'll stop there and open it up the stuff we can share for a different time, and see if anyone has any questions or wanted to chat or continue the discussion.
Katie, I'm going to have to drop off. Like I said, I apologize.
No problem.
So I'll jump in and throw my question towards you and then listen and then drop off.
No problem. I understand, Paul. Absolutely. Go ahead.
So I've heard Jack talk about the Ronald McDonald House as an exemplar of a school that was modeled, whose approach was modeled after his book,
That's
The
right.
Holistic Curriculum. And in that book, he talks about, for example, the 6 connections of the holistic curriculum. And some of those connections, it would just seem to me, not knowing, exactly the workings of the school, would be so challenging for you, given, in addition to other things, the transiency of your population. So kids dropping in, dropping out, how do you have those, community connections and relationship connections that sometimes, in my experience, just take time, to develop? It seems like it would be kind of on fast forward, or that shows my age, on whatever the digital equivalent is of spinning cassette tapes. So that's one question. And my second question was, in your presentation, though I felt it in ways in some of the quotes you shared, you didn't explicitly talk about the spiritual connections. And I feel like in many ways, that's what really defines holistic approaches and differentiates them from other SEL kinds of approaches to education. And given that I'm on my way to a spirituality and education conference, I just wondered if, in some ways it seems like kids who are dealing with really serious illness, potentially terminal illnesses, have an opportunity, if it's cultivated and part of the intentional sort of curriculum of the school, you have an opportunity with this population to really explore spiritual connections. And like I saw it in that quote from the 11th grader who was like, this allowed me to think about the fact that I have a future, and that kind of existential nature of that can be spun into spiritual awakenings, I would imagine. So anyway, I guess those are I'm going to stop talking, my couple of questions about the short-term nature of those relationships, and then about the spiritual opportunities.
So I know you have to drop off, but I'll still answer them. You can always come back and listen to the answers later, Paul.
Thank you.
So I think for the first one, in terms of the relationships, it's as you said, it's got to be fast forward. So I found it's 3 days. 3 days, there's the relationship is formed. That's been the magic for 20 years. It seems to be the thing. In 3 days, there's a relationship that develops, which seems strange, but I think it's because of the the small atmosphere, the classroom atmosphere, the intensity of the time they're going through, right? So there's almost like when families get to the school, I feel like the children are like looking for help. They're looking for someone to talk to. They're looking for those relationships where they can be honest, and they start to see, because children come in at all different times, I think they already see the relationships that are there between the current students and teachers, which allows them to kind of easier open up. Then maybe if you start school, in September, everyone's coming in, like everyone's trying to start a relationship at that time with an educator and with each other. But in our school, because people are one at a time coming in, yeah, of course, in September, it may take a little bit longer, but through the year, I don't find it does. And I think it's because they observe the relationships between the current students and the teachers, and they see it. They see that how the powerful and the honesty, the way the teachers can talk to the children. And so it makes it easier for them to open up, feel comfortable. But I have found, yeah, like it's interesting because when I have a new staff member start and, they're like, oh, that was such a hard day. And I'm like, let's give it 3 days, and then usually by the third day, it's fine. So, not that we don't have some challenges. Of course we do. Of course, there's some there's things that happen, but I do think it's the intensity of the situation they're in, what they observe from the relationships that are already formed. And even at the beginning of the year, I would say there's usually a couple children who are coming from who were there the previous year. So that does help, and they see that. So I would say that's that for the relationships, but a lot of it is just being like really open. Yeah, thanks. It's
Thank you
being
so
really, thanks, Paul. Yeah, it's being really open, and I think they can see that. And we also do things a little bit differently. Like we use first names. We don't use like Mrs. Doering, like it's Katie. Like, so those kinds of things I take away, I think, some of those formalities, and that I do think does help in some ways with that relationship building. So the second question that Paul asked, I will answer. So first of all, the reason that we don't emphasize spirituality in as much is, as I said, like a lot of us, I think in this realm, there's some resistance, right? So Ronald McDonald House as a brand, that is not like spirituality, because there isn't as much of a understanding of spirituality as more holistic and not like one religion over another, which is what I think a lot of the times people think of when they think of spirituality. That's why it's not part of our guiding principles or part of our KPIs, because we're speaking to kind of a different audience. But I think what Paul says is absolutely, do those discussions come up? Is that a principle? It is, but it's something that we take from the child, right? So when a child says that comment about the school gives me hope, that's an opportunity for us to unpack that. Well, how do you mean by that? What are you talking about? So those cues come from them, but we do bring in things like sharing circles. We bring in things at the end of every week where we're coming together as a group, and it has those kind of rituals that we have that I would say go with a lot of spirituality. But I would say from that, yeah, the reason it's not in the formal part of it is mainly because of a branding and the philosophy of the houses, which we are one house, but we are part of a global organization, right? So that's that. But I would say it's more things that we know, and certainly myself, there's like the time I've been there, that has been the most spiritual experiences I have been in that classroom, because of wading through grief, wading through, those things, and the kids, the things that happen, like those conversations, the feelings that you have, the space that feels like such a, like a sacred space where people can be open and be comfortable. That's where I would say we feel that spiritual nature, and is pivotal for what we're going through. But yeah, I think definitely the tension has been, if you say spiritual, are you talking about one religion or this religion? Like, what are you talking about? And I think that if someone were to talk about their experience at Ronald McDonald House School, though, in what they share, they have felt that openness to talking about, you know, what is life, what is the meaning of life, like what are those things, right? What does it mean? What are relationships? Those are big questions that I think they do explore through discussions when they come up with taking our cues from the children, and through the experiences that they've had at the hospital as well.
Katie, going off that, so you mentioned taking cues from the children, of course. So if they're bringing something forward in terms of their experience and then wanting to share, nurturing that, are there also, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, of rituals or opportunities to share, but are there also specific daily routines or artwork or something that you craft to help the children process what's going on?
Yeah, so over the years, we've definitely had different practices that we've used with the students. So, you know, certainly when I used to start the primary, like working with the primaries, we always did start with sharing our feelings. So we had like the faces, you know, where every morning, that as part of our morning exercises, each child would choose a face representing how they felt and share that. So that was part of every day. And with the older children, there was also that check-in every day. We didn't use faces, but there was a check-in at the beginning of, you know, how are you today? So in other years, it's evolved depending on who's the teacher. Like right now, they've moved to a button check-in. So each morning when they come in, they put a button on their feeling and then have an opportunity to discuss that as well. So there is always opportunities throughout the day to share through those things, where we find a lot comes out in that, because it is a practice that people know, oh, today I have an opportunity. This time is the time, right? It comes out at other times, but they know that that's an opportunity. And then, yeah, as I said, at the end of every week, we also have an opportunity to share as well, where we usually take a topic for that based on what we've seen through the week. So if we've seen like a lot of, for example, maybe challenges amongst the peers or something, that might be a topic that we would unpack as a group at the end of the week in our circle. So there are definitely times like that. In terms of like artwork, in terms of the curriculum, yes, it's when we do see, again, challenges, things children have been brought up, those get integrated within the activities. So it would be like if we notice that people were really struggling with being far away from home, right? Well, then we might say, okay, well, what we're going to do now is we're going to draw our houses, like make a picture of where we live and compare it to where we are now, and think about the things that we miss from there, but the things that we're grateful for of where we're living right now. So we'll look to try to work through those through exercise that do tie to the curriculum, but also help to address the emotional situations that they're currently going through. So a lot of it is really taking note of what's needed at the moment and how we can help to support that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. It's really so incredible. My question, I guess, I'm thinking about like some of the teachers, and I've had students that I get really connected with, and then then they leave, and like I really notice like, oh, I miss them. Like I'm sad that they're gone, and I'm just curious, like, I don't know, is this something you've noticed for teachers, or do teachers have support for, building these relationships and then, letting them go, and this, yeah.
Yes. So I will tell you, that was so hard for me, especially in the beginning, because when I was there the first 7 years, it was only me. I was the only teacher. I was like alone, but with like, it was really tough. So obviously, and in our small house, our 28 bedroom house, there was basically everyone was a long-term stay, because you didn't get into the 28 bedroom house unless you were a long-term stay, because we just had such a massive wait list. So I think that was a journey that I would say I had to go on as an educator. And then because I've been at the school since the beginning, it's been something that I've been able to coach the current educators on. And what it is having to kind of come to an understanding of what your role is. Because if I try to maintain relationships, strong relationships with all the children that I've ever worked with, I cannot be present for the children who are at Ronald McDonald House. So that is hard, but it's also identifying it. And I found that, like, not that obviously people still reach out, I still talk to them, but I had to kind of understand that I was a part of a time in their life that was a specific time that they would be staying at this house, and that I wanted to be present for the children in that room 100%, because this is like one of the most difficult times in their life ever. If they're going through a serious illness themselves or their sibling is. And so I had to kind of think about it in that way, and be that I'm here. Like, I got to, the expression, be where your feet are at, right? I have to be here. All the things that Jack taught me too, like, like, be present, right? Be present. So a lot of it was like that, in recognizing when a child leaves our classroom, there's three reasons they're going to leave. They're going to leave because they've recovered from the treatment, which is great. Then it's like, okay, great, there's been a recovery, so that's a happy thing. So I should be, happy for them and let them go, and they're going to go back to their school, and they're going to remember that time, but they're, that they're going back to their regular life, right? Then they could leave because the treatment has not worked, and like there's nothing further that can be done. So in those cases, families may stay in touch during that process, which is fine. But again, I understand that when they're at Ronald McDonald House, we are their main support system. We are the house where they're living. When they go home to those other support systems that they've been missing the whole time they've been with us, right? So they have people there because they're going to their home community. If they go home because a child has died, then again, we are providing that intensive support right when it happens, which is really hard. And a lot of people, it's hard to know what to do in that moment, right? So for me, it was about, how can I be the best person for them during those 3 days that I'm going to work with them, like before they go home, and do that hard thing, sit with them, be with them, do that. Because I also know when they go home, they've got people there to do it. They have other support system, or we can connect them. So I think for me, it was understanding, like, that's what my role is. My role is to be the support system when they're not in their home community, when they're not with their friend, when they're not there. And that's what I focus on. And I think when I talk to my teachers too, like when they come in, like, we do get attached, of course, but it's like, I'm so, focused on them that I find that when children leave and they come back, they remember of those 6 weeks or those 2 months. They're not like saying, oh, like, I'm really upset we lost touch, they'll just come back and they'll say, like, oh, like recently a person came back and she said, I attended the school for 7 weeks and it changed the course of my life. I just, and so I think of it like that, like, the time I have for them, what can I do during that time? And that's what I focus on, and try to coach my teachers to say that if we try to be everything to everyone, we can be nothing. We have to know what we're focusing on. But it is hard. And I've certainly connected with a lot of students, but I love when they come back to come to visit or chat, or parents reach out years later, even they've had a death in the family, and they still remember that time as what it was meant for them to be together as a community and to have support. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hi.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi. Can you hear me okay? Sometimes my sound is bad. It is such a beautiful story. I mean, it's just, you can sense your soul in this, and the school sounds beautiful. The beginning of it is like you built it.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. I don't have a real question. I'm just kind of reflecting.
Yeah.
What strikes me is there's so much appreciation that seems to flow. I mean, from and to the parents and the teachers and the children back, and it just that's what impressed me. I mean, that's something that's lacking sometimes, as a true
Yeah.
appreciation one of another. And you don't want to wish any. You wouldn't want to wish a family to have to go through something like this. But that appreciation is just and I'm sure you said that there were hard times and difficulties. I imagine you were speaking of problem behaviors or something like
Yeah.
this. But and that's what really has been impressing me. It's just
Yeah.
I can sense all the appreciation.
It is. And I mean, I think gratitude is like so important, right? Like in how being grateful and that is the thing that does strike me too, is how, like I feel so grateful to be a part of these families' journeys, and to have this school where we can do these things, like I feel so grateful to be working in an environment like that, in a school where we can meet families where they're at, where we can respond to their needs. Like it just seems to me unbelievable that you can do that. And I think when families come, they appreciate that, they see it, and they're like, oh, like they're not being told no, they're being told, let us work together with you to support your child. Even when, as I said, Cheryl, we have behavioral concerns, we have, there's a lot of things like that. But I think the viewpoint of saying, like, we're here to listen to you, and we're here to help support you and your child, and we want to work together with you, is something that is authentic from us, and families can feel it. And so there is that gratitude both ways. We thank you for sharing your children with us, and we're grateful for that experience too, all children, so they can feel that too. But yeah, gratitude it's taught me a lot too, Cheryl. Working there, I've learned a lot in my life. Like it's changed my way I view life, because it's makes me grateful for the smallest things, right? You do.
One
Yeah.
question that's come up just now is, have you been a model? Have people come to you and asked you how do you get this started? You know,
Hmm.
what effect? Do you know how many people have modeled?
Yeah, so there's a lot of houses that I'm talking to right now, other Ronald McDonald houses, who are interested in trying to replicate a similar model. It's very tricky because in Canada, education is like based on the province, like it's provincial, right? Whereas in the United States, it's also each state. So it's tricky because everyone has different like rules and regulations related to how to get it started. So that's really what puts a lot of stress on, like trying to replicate a similar model. Like here in Ontario and Canada, when you become a private school, you do have obviously you have to follow certain policies and procedures, but you do have a lot of freedom in terms of the curriculum that you're using. Like there's certain policies and procedures that need to be standardized, but you have a lot of freedom with our private school system, which isn't necessarily the same thing in other places. So it is definitely something that's happening. There's many houses that now are kind of reaching out to us, as well as just other schools in similar settings who are reaching out to have ask us to do some professional development for them. So for example, schools that are within like rehabilitation facilities, or schools in hospitals, like wanting to find out, how they could make their school more holistic, less just like, academic focused. So we are starting to see a lot more of that. And as we're looking to do, like with the new family-centered care, this idea that like a family is pivotal to children's health too, right? Like, so that's coming out too, of how we can keep families together. And a lot of that means schools and providing these wonderful experiences. So it is starting to get there. But yeah, in Canada, there's not a lot of houses that have as many rooms as ours that would really be able to accommodate a full school. Most of the Ronald McDonald houses are smaller, but in the United States, there are quite a few that are larger and we're connected with now. Great question.
Will you give us a little sneak peek or say something about your picture books? Because I know that that's also a beautiful thing that you brought to the children, and just share a little bit about that maybe.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I didn't get to those side, but yes, one of the things that I did that was really important to me was, of course, when we think about children feeling comfortable and safe in their environment, we want to see them represented in the materials, right? So in my first years, well, not first, many years teaching, I determined that there was very few picture books that featured children with illnesses. And the picture books that were available were of poor quality or very much promoting like disability stereotypes and things like that. So yes, that was my PhD thesis. I looked at representation of cancer in children's picture books. So I looked at the picture books that were available, published over the past like decade, and examined them in terms of accuracy of representation of the illness experience, in terms of if they were a quality picture book, and then also wanted to get reader response, because most of the content analysis looking at picture books don't actually ask children what they think of them. So I wanted to really talk to the children to see what they thought. So I did a content analysis of the books that were available. And then the top 3 books that were rated, I read to children who had cancer, who were in active cancer treatment. So the top 3 books were read to the children, and then asked for their thoughts. You know, what did they like of the book? What didn't they like? What suggestions would they have? What would they put in a book? So the results of that, my thesis, I did publish one article about that, but the main reason I wanted to, of course, was publish in the research community, but was to create a book that responded to what children wanted. So I did write a children's picture book called Eva Bell, and it is available at bookstores all over. And it is a picture book about a child who has cancer and her journey. So I can just go to show you the front cover. Hold on. And it is, so the idea was really to respond to the research, actionize the findings, and put together a book that the children could respond to. So that's Eva Bell there. And we said here, you know, really, illnesses, medical procedures, and hospital stays are a reality for many students, but rarely discussed in schools. So the book has, you can see it's got a lot of diversity. That was one thing that was missing in the books, not a very lack of diversity. It really wants to show Eva Bell and the agency that she does have, even though she's going through treatment, you know, to maintain her sense of self, and she's still able to do a lot of the things she enjoyed doing before she had cancer, and use those skills for other people in the hospital. And that's really a part of her nature and something that stays with her throughout treatment. So the book is available, and also online. There are all free teacher resources that can be printed for free, lesson plans and activities for children to do who are in a regular classroom or for children who are in treatment. So it's really available for anyone, and a great opportunity to start to have these conversations, because we find that was one of the things the children said that I interviewed. I want everyone to have a book. Like, people should read these books. It shouldn't be just when you have cancer. Everyone should be reading these. So we start to open up the conversation at any time so that they don't feel so isolated and alone. So yeah, so it's definitely a passion project. We during COVID, that was I finished my thesis kind of right before COVID, and then saw the opportunity to co-author this book with with Krista, and we've been very happy to share the book with a lot of audiences at schools and things like that. So yes, so I would encourage you, and yeah, and if any of you are connected with schools and you ever want to have like a book reading, happy to do that, to join on to a Zoom call and do a reading for a classroom, and I'm happy to do that. Okay. Yes. I hope you write some more books in the future, but definitely got super busy in the past couple of years. So once we got back in person, it was, oh, I don't know how I did that. I think I could have only done it during COVID with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate how you wanted to ask the children what they wanted to see, and their voice was important. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Very important.
And keeping that, it doesn't just have to be for children who are currently in that situation, but just that exposure to it, is this is something that happens. This is a part of life and experience for some children and families, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Does anyone else have any closing questions? Otherwise, maybe Katie can just have a closing remark for us if anyone else wants to share. Midori, I'm not sure, Midori, have we met before? Have you been on a call before? Katie said she knew you, but I don't know.
I do.
Yes, I live in Toronto, and I know Katie. I know she what she's doing, and then I do felting, so I get to do the felting with kids there, and then in one classroom, all kinds of age range children were there, and then they're just kids, it's just normal kids going through intense, thing, but still they're just so kids, right? And I just enjoy time with them. But just listening to you, Katie, that it's just that the teachers, like you talked about, just focus on the kids in front of you. It just so fully present, and then like that, so they get to open themselves up to you as who they are. For me, that's one of the most spiritual experiences the students can get in school, right? So it's beautiful. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you. Well, I always love seeing you. It's a pleasure. Yeah. No, I think you summed it up. That's it, right? I think that is like, to be so open, to just be present, for someone to feel that in this day and age. To me, that is
so special.
Like, I don't know, in this day of the digital, all these things going on, to know someone is there with you 100% in one of your most difficult times, to meet whatever it is that you need that day. I think that's how I would sum it up.
Yeah,
like,
kids feel it, right?
Yeah. It's a privilege to be a part of that journey, and to be there for the kids in that way, and to learn that they have, as I said, it's changed my whole way I work. To have those open conversations has changed the way I view, my family, the way we all move through life, right?
Yeah.
But I think I'll just end to say, like, thank you so much. This was such a wonderful opportunity. I really appreciate you inviting me here today. Jack shared with me about the group, and like, of course, he's a huge inspiration to me. Being taught by him has been so incredible, and has helped to continue to form and to have him as a support throughout this whole time. And I'm so excited to be connected with other educators who feel passionately about this. And as I said, now I'm looking forward to joining other talks and hearing from other people as we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you.
Okay, have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.